Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our mid-season recap show. If you haven't already checked out part 1, we talked about the NFC, and now today we're going to talk about the AFC, going through every team in the AFC just like we did in the NFC. And just like last time, there are some footnotes at the end of the podcast because there were 2 weeks in between recording and releasing, so stay tuned at the end for those. And before we jump in, I just want to let you know that you can listen to this on our YouTube channel, Nothing Notable, but you can also listen to this on Spotify if you want to be listening to some sports talk on the go. Just search up the Nothing Notable podcast on Spotify and give us a listen. So without further ado, here is part 2 of the mid-season recap show. Starting with the AFC East.
This is a weird division here.
Starting at the bottom with the Jets.
Horrible. I don't think we need to talk about them more than we have already.
Yeah, we've given them more time than they need because they're a bad team. They have a bad coach. They have a bad quarterback.
We covered them in our opening segment, basically, with coaches who should be fired.
They cut Le'Veon Bell. Hilarious.
Yep.
I love that. He makes $1 trillion for playing a half a second.
Transitioning from coaches who should be fired to coaches who are very good, Brian Flores and Miami.
I thought you were going to go to the Pats.
Both of them.
Yeah, that's funny though. Brian Flores, again, has proven us right. He's a good coach, although I was very concerned with the benching of Fitzpatrick for Tua.
Yeah.
I don't like how that went down.
No.
It's not Brian Flores' fault. There was a rat in the organization.
Somehow that leaked.
Yeah, it leaked, and it was a bad look. And it has. This is really, I think, where he's going to be tested, because they're not a playoff team yet.
More than likely, no, probably not.
They're doing pretty good. They're 3-3. Mm-hmm. I like what they've done. Maybe Tua has some real magic in him, and they win that division. Maybe the Bills start to lose some games. But I think the Fitzpatrick benching thing, because if you're not familiar, the Ryan Fitzpatrick basically found out in the worst
basically
way
on Twitter, more or less.
And then he had a press conference and he talked about how his heart was hurting and how sad he was and how he, for the first time since Buffalo, he felt like this was his team and he knew that Tua was eventually going to take over, but he was shocked when it happened. I don't like the move to go to Tua yet.
It's a tough situation because a bye week is ideally the time when you want to switch over to your rookie quarterback.
Right.
But at the same time, they're a competitive team right now, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing well. So if you leave him in there, you have an outside shot to make the playoffs. I think they wish their bye week was 4 weeks later or something, right. So they had a little better idea.
This is what's great though. This is why it's going to be a big moment for Brian Flores, because this shows, as did last year, the difference between Brian Flores and the front office. The front office wants the Dolphins to lose some more games so they can get higher draft picks. Brian Flores looks at this division and says, the Pats are not as good as they were last year.
The Jets are bad.
The
Bills have question marks.
Yeah, so we could still, at 3-3, because the Bills are 4-2, they're 3-3.
Mm-hmm. Bills are 4-2 and trending downwards, though.
Right, and so they're thinking, okay, we can make the playoffs. We can sneak in this year. So that's Brian Flores saying, okay, this is what we need to do in order to make the playoffs. So I commend him for really working hard and trying to actually put together a playoff team with a non-playoff team roster. But it is tough the way that this all went down. And I feel bad for Fitzmagic because I'm a big stan for Fitzmagic.
Big stan.
And I don't know. The biggest question is Tua healthy?
Yep.
If he is, fine. Then there's reason to start him because you drafted him in the first round.
He's incredibly talented. He was widely regarded before he got hurt and before Joe Burrow's meteoric rise as the go-to guy in the draft class. Tank for Tua was the thing.
Exactly. So it makes sense. We talked about how you should probably not start him. You said for at least the first 12 games. I said for the whole first season. But then things changed. The division looked like it was winnable. So real tough decision. This is going to be a big moment in Brian Flores' career. Mm-hmm. If Tua looks bad, it's not over for Tua if he looks bad or anything like that. But if they miss the playoffs and he looks bad and they bench Fitzpatrick, who probably wouldn't have gotten them into the playoffs either if that is the case. But
the floor for Tua, or the ceiling for Tua, is certainly higher than the ceiling for Fitzpatrick. But I think the floor for Fitzpatrick is higher than that of Tua's at this moment.
Yeah. So tough decision. We're gonna when we do the wrap up pod for the NFL season.
This will be a big moment in it.
This will be a big thing that we'll come back to.
Yes.
The Pats are 2-3. Unfortunately, Cam Newton got COVID.
Missed one game
Missed one game.
against the Chiefs, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I mean that maybe that was actually good for Cam because
Yeah.
they probably were going to lose that game anyway.
I'll be honest, this Patriots team is not good.
You said that they were a team void of talent, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's
That's what
totally
it looks
true.
like right now.
Yeah, they're even at 2-3. I think they're overachieving. Actually,
Yeah.
I made the comparison of the Popovich Spurs. They're probably going to just barely, almost, not quite sneak into the playoffs. Like they have no business being decent, but they'll be decent. I actually think the floor is kind of. I think we're lowering the ceiling and the floor. I think everything's moving down a little bit.
We knew the offense was kind of going to be rough just because they do not really have weapons there. The defense, though, has been what's disappointing. The pass defense has still been fine, especially with Stephon Gilmore out there, but their run defense has really not been good so far this year. I believe they're ranked 31st in the league in running back defense. So yeah, and Cam as a rusher has been great this year, especially down near the goal line. But outside of that Seattle game as a passer, he has not looked all that great.
It's good that they weren't quick to give him a contract.
Yeah.
If I'm the Patriots, I don't know what you need to see out of Cam to decide, like, hey, this is our guy for the future. What you want to see is, like, is he a good locker room guy?
Yep.
The answer is yes. Then you want to see, okay, is he healthy? Is he looking good? The answer seems yes.
Seems to be. So far, so good.
And then I guess the last thing for me would just be, like, higher completion percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can give me those three things, then I would be comfortable giving him a contract extension. Nothing super expensive, though.
Yeah.
Because he isn't playing above average right now.
I think the real decision for them is going to come down to if they have a top 10 pick or so, is there a quarterback that you like more than Cam out there?
And also,
they've not been great at drafting over the last few years, especially on the offensive side of the football.
yeah, they've had some big misses.
Speaking of Bill, the Buffalo Bills kind of have had a roller coaster season so far.
Mm-hmm.
They started off playing extremely well, especially offensively. Josh Allen was proving all the doubters wrong, including to a degree myself. But then the last couple games, man, he has not looked very good.
I was pretty excited because I think I was higher on Josh Allen than you. So I was like, here we go.
Here we go.
And now, yeah, the last few games, some of those mistakes, some of those classic Josh Allen mistakes have been coming back to bite him in the butt. Mm-hmm. And they kind of look a little bit more like the Bills last year.
Yeah.
There was a moment where it's like, okay, is Tennessee for real or is Buffalo for real? And I think Buffalo is still good, but I don't see them as AFC championship material.
They were one of the teams coming into this year who I thought they would be an AFC contender, just behind the Ravens and the Chiefs. And their defense has not been as good this year as it has in the past. And clearly we've seen that there's an extremely high ceiling for Josh Allen. He's extremely talented, but he has been prone to those boneheaded mistakes and just inability to play consistently at that high level that we need out of our top flight quarterbacks.
Right. And as we mentioned before we were recording, I was talking about Big Ben, and I was looking back at some of his career numbers. And guys like Big Ben, Eli Manning, and some of these other quarterbacks that are susceptible to interceptions, they really didn't get it going for a number of years. And then eventually they found it. And so those are the reason that those guys stuck around and Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones won't is because exactly what you were saying. There's a clear ceiling that's higher than some other quarterbacks. Yeah. And that's the case with Josh Allen. The ceiling is definitely high, and you can see all the potential in the world. And it just takes time to throw more balls against more NFL defenses to not make stupid decisions. So he's been good. He was a front runner for the MVP through 4 weeks.
4 weeks, yeah.
And now he's definitely not. But
I will say at this point, though, I think it's more likely that he reaches his potential and ceiling than that he doesn't.
Yeah, I think so. And I like the Bills. I think they're a good team.
Mm-hmm. I think they very clearly will win that division.
Yeah.
They'll probably go 11-5 or so. Seems about right.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where I had him coming into the preview pod as well. So that's the AFC East. We're going to jump into the AFC West. I have nothing to say about the Chiefs other than
The Chiefs are great.
they're great. Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is great.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Chiefs fans, but I mean,
Yeah.
you get enough shine.
He had enough shine.
You get enough shine.
The one thing I will say that's disappointed me with the Chiefs is the fact that they ride Clyde Edwards-Helaire down the whole field into the red zone and then, like, at the goal line, either do a touch pass to one of those extremely fast wide receivers that they have or give it to someone else.
Right. And
It just has hurt my fantasy team, that's all. But no, the Chiefs are an excellent team. Do not have much to say about them outside of that.
do you think Le'Veon Bell has a big impact on the team?
I don't think that Le'Veon Bell was brought in to, like, replace the Clydesdale. I think
That took me a second to register. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I think it's more likely that he is brought in to replace Darrell Williams and to be more like the number 2 back. I think he's probably going to get 8 to 10 touches a game. We'll see what Le'Veon has in the tank still, because he has not looked great with the Jets, and maybe part of that is because he was on the Jets. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Champagne problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, the Chiefs, you're not getting much conversation because you're awesome. And Patrick Mahomes. Actually, I'll just say this about the Chiefs. I can definitively say today that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback who's ever played.
From a talent standpoint, certainly it looks like that.
I think when it's all said and done, it's over.
Yeah.
He's the greatest of all time.
Yep. And it's just the matter of that playing out for him to, like, definitively become the GOAT.
Exactly. The Raiders, they're better.
They're feisty.
I didn't give them enough credit. I'm happy to say that Derek Carr is playing well.
You want to hear these Derek Carr numbers?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, let me pull them up really quick because he's played very, very well so far. Derek Carr has passed for about 1,400 yards so far,
Terrific.
11 touchdowns, 1 interception,
Great.
a 73% completion percentage,
Oh my gosh.
an 81 QBR,
Uh-huh.
and his average air yards per attempt is 9.2, which is a career high for him.
Now that's great because your big point coming into the preview pod was that they need to unleash Derek Carr and let him throw downfield.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, they got the weapons. And Henry Ruggs looks good.
Henry Ruggs has been a little dinged up,
Uh-huh.
but when he plays, we kind of see a similar effect that he's very much like Tyreek Hill for them, where just his presence on the field kind of changes that offense.
So I like what I'm seeing out of them. They I think I had them going anywhere from 7 to 10, and they're definitely on the higher end of that.
I think so.
I think they're probably I think now I would say the 10 to 12 range.
The defense is the one question mark for me still right now, but I think that offense is legit.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see that Derek Carr is succeeding because it means that Derek Carr is probably going to be their guy going forward.
I would hope so.
And we like Derek Carr, and John Gruden seems to be happy with them. So I'm glad that their marriage is working out. They've got a bunch of guys. I think Mike Mayock took a lot of crap after the first draft. I think they actually I think Mayock had a fairly similar draft situation as like the Niners, where like, okay, maybe Cleveland Farrell doesn't work out totally, just like the Niners taking Solomon Thomas with the 3rd overall pick, but then their later round picks are all pretty solid and they're panning out pretty well.
I mentioned it on our preview one, and I think the philosophy still has held true for Mike Mayock, that they don't necessarily pick guys in the exact like spot that you would think they would get picked, but they pick like very good football players still. Maybe they reach a little bit on them, but you can clearly see why they would be like into this guy.
Yeah, so I apologize to the Raiders. I should have given them more credit. And it's funny, too, because they're 3-2 right now. So they could totally flip into a tailspin.
Absolutely.
But
Would be classic Raiders.
would be classic Raiders. But new city, new team. They have an energy to them
Yeah.
that they feel like a winning culture all of a sudden. So then jumping ahead, so we did Chiefs and Raiders. Let's do Broncos.
Again, not much to say about the Broncos.
Gosh, I feel bad because, I mean, we haven't seen enough of Drew Lock yet because he was out. I guess the one storyline that I'm interested in is just Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay because I really like Philip Lindsay.
Yeah.
And it was a bummer when they signed Melvin Gordon. We talked about how puzzling that was. And so now he's probably not. He's probably gone.
In the next couple of weeks, he will more than likely receive some sort of a suspension.
I saw an article headline about how the Broncos are auditioning for Philip Lindsay, not the other way around. I thought that was really interesting. I think Philip Lindsay, when the contract is up, he's out the window.
That seems about right.
And other than that, I mean, I had them. They went 7-9 last year, which is crazy, actually. I had them staying around the same. I said plus minus 2 wins. I don't see them getting there, actually.
No, they have had so many injuries this year. Cortland Sutton went down like right away, which sucks for them. Jarrell Casey went down. Von Miller went down. AJ Bouye went down. Like it's a very unfortunate situation for them. They just lost so many key players to their team.
They're in a similar situation to the Niners, except they don't have a dynamic offense like the Niners. So it's going to be tough to pull themselves out of that injury situation. And again, don't have that much to say about them.
We'll see how Drew Lock develops as the season goes on.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Now let's talk about the Chargers.
Yes.
Pretty disappointing season.
In a way, yes. In a way, it's been encouraging, and in a way, it's been disappointing.
Right. The big story, man, Tyrod cannot catch a break.
He really cannot.
The doctor stabbed him in the lung.
Oh, my God.
We said, I think just generally we were saying 6 games was the number for all the quarterback turnover. But, God, Tyrod gets stabbed and by the doctor, and then Justin Herbert gets his shot to start. What was that, week 2?
Week 2.
Yeah. Golly.
Week 2, before the game, Tyrod Taylor had I believe it was a cracked rib or something like that, and they went to give him a shot to numb the pain. The doctor clearly is incompetent and went between his ribs and punctured his lungs.
It sucks for him because this is the last shot that I think he'll ever have to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So similarly to Dak, it's just like a really unfortunate situation where you hate to see it, and not in like a meme way. You really hate to see it.
Yes. So now he will be a perpetual backup quarterback for the rest of his year. Kyle Shanahan, give him a call.
Yeah, sure. But that opened the gates for Herbert, who we were both very down on.
I will happily admit that I was quite wrong about Justin Herbert, it appears, through the first 5 starts of his career. He clearly has amazing arm talent to be a top-flight quarterback, and he has some goddamn guts on him with some of these deep throws.
Yeah.
He will air that hoe out. He will let the ball fly. And the big thing that I will take away from this is my evaluation of Justin Herbert was a process mistake. Instead of looking at the talent of the player, I was looking at the talent of the player in the system that he was in. At Oregon, they did not let him air the ball out downfield. It was a very, very conservative passing attack. He threw a remarkable amount of like screens and whatnot and low air yard passes. And I held that against him during the draft process when in reality I should have held it against the Oregon coaching staff.
Yeah.
And they should all be fired because this kid, there's a couple of times still, he's very much like Josh Allen to me.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. There's a couple of times where he makes not the best decisions. He throws a ball late. Specifically, there was one play, I think it was I can't remember what team but they were playing, but it was 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and he rolled out to the left, had no one within 15 yards of him, very easily could have just taken the first down, gone out of bounds like 10 more yards upfield, instead throws across his body and throws a horrible interception. There are plays like that still, but the arm talent is so impressive, certainly can be a top-flight quarterback.
Yeah, I'll also amend my criticism. I don't take back my my draft philosophy on drafting Oregon quarterbacks. I totally stand by that. That's don't draft an Oregon quarterback. But yeah, Herbert's been good. I think the confidence actually is the thing that shines the most. And that's what I see in Josh Allen too. With Daniel Jones and even Sam Darnold, like there's a timidness on throwing some balls that really concerns you. Even to a certain extent, Jimmy G has some timidness sometimes, and you kind of just look at that like, shoot, I don't like that. Timidness is pretty tough to get past. That's a confidence thing. But Herbert just has this confidence, like you said, throwing some balls downfield that are just nuts. I haven't watched a ton of Chargers action yet this season. What I have watched, though, of Justin Herbert, he's like unafraid.
Yeah.
He's tossing.
Sometimes to a fault. He has taken some brutal hits this year when he's scrambling, and he will need to change that behavior.
And exactly the same thing with Josh Allen.
Yep.
I think he and Josh Allen are so similar.
They really are.
And I'm seeing a very similar ceiling for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're both sort of Big Ben-esque. Mm-hmm. They both have those
More
high...
mobile Big Ben.
Exactly. They're Cam Newton and Big Ben, I think is what I said last time about Josh Allen. If you combine those two, you kind of get a little bit of a Josh Allen.
Which I will say on Josh Allen, to be fair, when he was coming out of the draft, I said that his top flight level would be Big Ben and his low level would be Jamarcus Russell. So that's my whole thing with Josh Allen coming out of the draft, is that I was not against him. There was just such a wide range of outcomes for him, because there was very clearly talent, but there was also some just ugly stuff.
Yeah, so good for Justin Herbert. He proved us wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. The Chargers are still, though, only 1-5.
Yeah, so that's tough.
Yeah.
At this point...
Or 1-1, and they have one win.
Right. And so at this point, it's just about developing Justin Herbert and deciding, okay, who are we keeping for next year? Mm-hmm. Just continue to evaluate the talent on the roster, and let Herbert cook.
And hopefully at some point they will win some of these close games.
Yeah.
In the future, because they haven't in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable because the Chargers are in many ways like the Seahawks, because the Seahawks are always in these weird close games.
Yeah.
But then the Seahawks always somehow win them, and the Chargers always somehow lose them.
Right. I think they sacrificed the Chargers to the pagan gods.
The pagan West Coast gods.
Yeah. I do just want to mention, though, because I think none of us expected Herbert to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation, just because he wasn't going to be a starter for at least 6 weeks until they benched Tyrod. But he's started all but one game now, so I think he's definitely in that conversation. Joe Burrow has
been great. We will get to the AFC North. Mm-hmm. And then there have also been some tremendous rookie wide receivers this year. You could make a whole list of them. You can do that yourself at home. But no, Justin Jefferson has been phenomenal. Brandon Ayuk has been very good. We talked about Henry Ruggs. Jerry Jeudy on Denver, we didn't talk about much, but he's very talented. Chase Claypool has been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. That's not even talking about like CeeDee Lamb or on Chicago, Darryl Mooney. There's like so many dudes have just absolutely lit it up this year, and the Packers didn't draft a single one of them. Absolutely
incredible. So that actually does bring us to the AFC North. So let's jump into the Bengals. I think Herbert and Burrow are it's tough to not give Rookie of the Year to a quarterback.
It very much is tough.
It's tough to
Although
really...
last year, Josh Jacobs did win it, but there was not really any good... Or no, he didn't win it. Kyler Murray won it.
Yeah, that's
Josh Jacobs probably should have won it last year, but Kyler Murray did win it because it's tough to not give it to a quarterback.
Yeah. So far, my impression of Joe Burrow is that I really like him.
Yeah.
He really is. He's got the stuff. Mm-hmm. Herbert is like surprising, and still it's a lot of ceiling. There's still a lot of gap between like where he is now and where we think he could get. But with Burrow, it's like, I'm seeing flashes of it now, right now. We're seeing stuff happen. Even though they've only got one win, he is really good, and he's keeping them somewhat in some of these games as much as he can. He's also getting assaulted, though. That's
my biggest fear with him, is that they, this offseason, need to put as much money as they possibly can and as much draft capital into this offensive line, because they need to save him, because they have the weapons there, too. We're talking about rookie wide receivers. I failed to mention T. Higgins, but T. Higgins has been a goddamn man out there on the field.
Yeah.
Like, that kid is good.
Yeah, and
unfortunately, Tyler Boyd, AJ Green still has something in the tank.
That's what I was gonna say. Is unfortunately AJ is on the way out. Probably he's definitely. I think he's pretty expensive. I don't know what the cap.
He's on
situation
the franchise
is.
tag this year.
Okay, that's right. So we'll see where AJ Green ends up. But yeah, if they could pull in like maybe another young receiver out of the draft.
It's another good wide receiver draft class this year.
That's pretty exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting.
But he's got Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. So as long as they can put together an offensive line that'll keep him from being murdered, like you see this with Deshaun Watson on the Texans, like he just gets murdered. And what's the point of having a quarterback like that if you're just going to let him get absolutely pummeled until they're injured. But Joe Burrow is, I mean, I think he's the rookie of the year, probably.
I would say so at this point. Herbert could definitely get himself in that mix. If one of these receivers continue to be ridiculous, like Justin Jefferson has a couple more 150-yard receiving games. But I would say probably right now, yeah.
And that's all I have to say about the Bengals. They're 1-4-1. I love it when a team ties. So to the benefit of the Eagles also.
Yes.
The Browns, I think we pretty much talked about.
We covered them in our opening segment, but just to recap, Baker Mayfield's really kind of holding this team back, it looks like, because there's talent on this roster. And, you know, another area I was wrong, Kevin Stefanski has done a good job with this team, but Baker's not looked impressive so far.
He's kind of in a weird situation. Like, here's the thing with Baker. I've seen enough to know that I don't want him on my team, but there's enough on tape that I think you can also get something for him. You unfortunately, you decided to take him number one, so you're not getting a number one overall pick.
No. You might be able to get a late first-round pick for him. Some team might give you that. You know, the Saints could possibly be a team that would look for him, but I would try to sell him after this year because he's not having like a horrifically bad season. I think you could get something for him, whether it be a late 1 or a 2 or something in that ballpark. But yeah, I would try to move on from him after this season.
And then you make a huge pitch to the free agents in this upcoming class. You probably draft somebody also, but you say, hey, Cam Newton, you want to come play in Cleveland?
If the Cowboys decide to let Dak go?
Dak, you want to come play in Cleveland? We've got like a really good team over here. Does Matt Ryan want to make? Do you guys want to trade Matt Ryan? I know it's a tough cap situation, but we'll take a bunch of it. Does Jameis Winston want to come play for the Cleveland Browns? There's a bunch of options all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I think moving off of Baker and just taking one of these guys that I've just mentioned, you're probably in a better position because I think you're totally right. He is the thing that's holding them back right now, and they're good despite him right now. But also they're not. Like we said, they're going to show us their ass at some point. They're not that great.
Now, a team that I think is really great in that division, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Totally.
They have looked impressive so far on both sides of the football.
And Big Ben's been remarkably efficient, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. Basically the same numbers as Derek Carr almost.
Yep.
We thought that he was probably going to have a pretty good season. It was more interesting if he didn't. But he's had a good year. The whole team looks really good.
Chase Claypool has been great.
Defense is good.
My comp for Chase Claypool coming out of the draft was Darren Waller. I thought he would make an excellent tight end like that.
Yeah.
But he's killing it out wide right now.
So I like where Pittsburgh is at. I think it was foolish of everyone not to consider them an AFC contender, like a real contender.
I can't wait till they play the Ravens.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's going to be so much fun. That's going to be like those old classic Ravens-Steelers games with Troy Polamalu against Ray Lewis and Big Ben against Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
And now we got Big Ben against Lamar Jackson.
And in 20 years, we'll have Big Ben against someone else.
Yeah, against RG3.
With a bionic knee. Yeah, so the Steelers, they're undefeated. And
they play the Titans this week, who are also undefeated. So when this pod comes out, one of those teams will not be undefeated.
Good point.
Or they might be if they tie.
Oh, that's true. Nothing's holding me back from saying the Steelers are going to win this division. Because I'm not in love with the Ravens.
The Ravens, we'll transition to them now, they're a weird team.
Yeah.
Because they only have one loss this year, which was a bad loss against the Chiefs.
Totally.
But we know what the potential of this team is. We know how good they can play. They just have not gotten to that level yet, especially on offense. They did on defense add Yannick Ngakoue, which pairing him up with Calais Campbell again is going to be very, very effective for them, I think. But it's just tough because I feel like on offense, outside of their run game, they do not have much else going on, which is why they signed Dez Bryant to the practice squad.
They're better than they are right now. So we'll see if they flip the switch. I'm waiting for a game for the Ravens where everything clicks Lamar is throwing dots and he's running all over the field.
Maybe it'll be when they get against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Because that would probably be a primetime game, I would imagine.
Totally. At least it should be.
It should be.
Unless COVID shuts it down.
The NFL should just flex games every week to have the best game on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. God, because when you end up with Jags versus anybody.
Yeah, let the Thursday night games be those random games.
Sure.
But, they flexed the game this week due to COVID with the Bucks and Raiders. But I think Seahawks-Cardinals is definitely a more interesting game than Bucks and Raiders.
I mean, this division is actually sneaky good.
Sneaky good division.
I don't think the Bengals are a really competitive team,
Nope.
but they have flashy moments. Mm-hmm. And then the other teams, Steelers, Ravens, and Browns, are all winning teams right now.
Yep.
It's a pretty fun division, pretty exciting. But I do think once they start playing each other, then things are going to get a little more ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Like once the Browns, the Browns have played the Ravens once, and the Steelers once, or have they not played the Steelers
They have
yet?
played the Ravens and the Steelers, and those are their two losses right now, and they were ugly.
Exactly. So I expect the Ravens and the Steelers to win the next two of those
Yep.
as well. So that's where the division sort of separates very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the Browns are going to show us their ass.
Yeah.
So on to the last division.
The last division, we finally made it.
We made it, and
This
it's
is only 4 hours long.
and I feel bad because it's like not a great division.
I know. We saved the outside of the NFC North, like one of the least interesting divisions for last.
The Jags, I have not much to say.
No, Gardner Minshew is Baker Mayfield, which I've always said. In fact, Gardner Minshew might be a little bit better than Baker Mayfield. He's another one of those guys because I don't think the Jags view him as their franchise quarterback. I think they're, especially when they fire Doug Marrone and get a new head coach. But I think he's another one of those guys who teams might look to try to trade for this offseason.
It's funny how not only does he play like Baker, but he also, it seems like he's doing like a cosplay of Baker.
He's got like the same swagger.
Yeah, he's got like this mustache, and he's like, he basically is the epitome of the I'm feeling dangerous thing.
Yeah.
like he's that kind of a guy.
He's like what Baker's alter ego should be.
Exactly, yeah, that's right. That's if Baker could take the energy of Gardner Minshew a little bit more, then I think Baker would be a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Jags, they are who we knew they were going to be.
Yep.
We were right about the Jags. Good on us, but also it wasn't hard.
Nope.
We didn't have to study for that test. The Texans, big disappointment.
Another team we kind of touched on earlier.
Uh-huh.
But Deshaun Watson has played great. Deshaun Watson's doing everything he can to keep this team in games.
It's sad.
It's sad. They're just not a very good football team.
Deshaun Watson, since he's become the starting quarterback in Houston, has always been that guy. Like, he's doing the most. He's running around the field. He is tossing balls across his body. He is making these insane plays. And
He's a lot like Russell Wilson was early on in his career.
Yeah, definitely. And they're giving him no protection. They're literally taking weapons away from him.
Yep.
And now they're strapped to a situation because of all the moves that Bill O'Brien made, where they're probably getting worse.
They don't have a first-round draft pick this year,
That's right.
and they're going to have a top 10 pick. That's why the worst trade that Bill O'Brien made was that Laramie Tunsil trade, where they traded for him in the final year of his contract without getting a contract extension from him first. They gave up 2 first-round picks for him. They ended up having to pay him $22 million, and the person that they traded away to replace him with was Dwayne Brown, who Dwayne Brown has been just as good as Laramie Tunsil has the last 2 years, except Dwayne Brown's making, I think, $10 million a year.
This is why he's not in charge in Houston
This is
anymore.
why he got fired.
This is why you're not on an NFL roster.
Yeah. That's why he has a butthole for a chin.
Now let's not get personal here. Texans, they're going to start winning some more games, I
I think so. They had a tough schedule early on.
Yeah, so they could turn it around and still get to 8 wins, but
They're not a playoff team.
they're not a playoff team, and I feel bad for Deshaun Watson. If there was an award for, like, hardest trier on a bad team, then he probably is the front runner. The Colts.
I think the Colts are a bad team too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've been a little bit deceptive. I think everyone can see that Phillip Rivers is a little bit washed, but I don't think it's totally clear yet to everyone that they're not going to be good.
Yeah. Phillip Rivers has looked bad. They really do not have that many weapons on offense. T.Y. Hilton has looked like dust this year.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're like not giving Jonathan Taylor more carries, but instead are like, let's give Jordan Wilkins like 10 touches a game. And that's not making sense. Their defense is fine. It's probably like a B defense. DeForest Buckner has been great for them still.
Good job,
Love
DeForest.
that man.
Yeah, good man.
Darius Leonard, when he's on the field, is terrific.
Yeah.
But I think they're a team. We talk about teams who are going to like regress towards the mean, more or less. I think they're going to see some regression in the latter half of the season.
And I referred to them as a team that was doomed to live in mediocrity last time. I think that's right on. I think they're a mediocre team because they were 9-7 last year and they missed the playoffs.
I don't think they're better than 9-7 this year.
Which is funny because we mentioned like is Phillip Rivers going to add 1 or 2 wins over Jacoby Brissett? Maybe not. Apparently not.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett's still on that roster.
Yeah. So they're 4-2 as of the recording of this podcast, but just like the Browns, like that's a deceptive spot to be at. If you're 4-3, all of a sudden it's a totally different team. Because I mean, the Niners, if they win against the Pats, they're 4-3, and people are like still But you know, at 4-2, it's like here we go. I don't like what I'm seeing from the Colts. They're a team I don't want to watch. Also,
they're kind of boring.
Yeah, which is a shame because I really liked them when Andrew Luck was on the team, and obviously when Peyton was on the team. I like them generally.
They're just a snore fest now.
Yeah, they're a real snoozer.
Yeah.
And so that's going to bring us to a really fun team. This is a bad division, but like a fun team to end on, the Tennessee Titans.
First of all, fuck the Tennessee Titans for the bullshit they were pulling with their COVID stuff, like not caring at all. Second of all, fuck Taylor Lewan for after they won a game after being off for like 2 weeks because they all got COVID, being like, everyone doubted us, put us in adversity. Fuck you. Third of all, sorry that you tore your ACL. No one wanted to see that happen.
Yeah, very sad.
Fourth of all, Mike Vrabel is probably one of the top 4 or 5 head coaches in the league. Not from an X's and O's standpoint, again, but this dude knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he does some fucking manipulative shit with the clock. In this game against the Texans, I only caught parts of the game live, but I went back and rewatched it. They were in the fourth quarter. I think there was about 3 or so minutes left. They were on defense. The Texans had the ball. It was like 3rd and 2 or something like that. 3rd and 1. Texans most likely were going to pick up that first down. That's just what the percentages say. What Mike Vrabel did was intentionally sent 12 men onto the field to get the clock to stop on the penalty then. And you see on that click, Malcolm Butler's like looking over to him, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, there's 12 men out here. And you see like Mike Vrabel like, good, nope, stay out there. Play starts. They blow the whistle. Texans get the first down. Clock stops though then. They're not able to like milk the clock out for another 40 seconds. It was very smart stuff going on there.
And he's been doing that so much. I mean, obviously he pulled the what was it? It was the delay of game penalties.
He just kept taking delay of games to milk the clock and he broke Bill in that process. Bill was heated.
Yeah, and so now that's become like a thing that coaches do. Like it's funny how there are some rules that like only the nerds know.
Yep.
And then once the nerds expose the rule, then everyone's like, "Oh, that's smart. Why aren't we doing that?" So yeah, Vrabel's one of those guys. He just like knows stuff. And from like what I've been hearing on other podcasts, is just like when Vrabel was under Bill, he was always a guy that would question the game plan.
Yeah.
Which is kind of impossible to do against a guy like Bill.
One of the best defensive coaches of all time.
Totally. So when you're able to go toe to toe with a great, that's pretty impressive. So, and Ryan Tannehill, I stan Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill has been fantastic since he's been the Titans starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Incredibly efficient.
Again, proves how bad Adam Gase is.
Yes. Sneaky MVP candidate, Ryan Tannehill.
Love it.
If they keep this up, he could be in there. Another guy who could be in the MVP race, the absolute dog they have running back, Derrick Henry, who just throws guys around on the field.
Yeah. He started the season off a little bit slower. Some people who will be unnamed, Sam Afsharipur,
Brother Sam.
have been real down on Derrick Henry. But no, he's exactly who we remembered him from last year. He's an absolute freaking monster.
Yep.
And he, like you said, he throws guys.
Yes. The one thing I would like to see the Titans do more is just once a quarter, give a screen pass to Derrick Henry and just let him run over DBs there then.
Right.
I feel like just if once a quarter they did that, it would make things very spicy.
Yeah. And they're a really good team. I really like the Titans. Like, they're very quickly becoming an AFC favorite for me.
It's going to be fun watching them play the Steelers this Sunday. That is going to be a good game.
Yeah. Because I think Vrabel is, among the playoff teams, like, I think Vrabel is probably the second best coach in the AFC. Behind Andy Reid with the Chiefs.
It's probably between him and Mike Tomlin for the second best coach.
Yeah. And so we'll see how that turns out, obviously.
Maybe John Harbaugh, too. John Harbaugh is also a very good
Oh, yeah, totally. No, there's no question. There's a bunch of good coaches in there, but I think just right now, I think Vrabel has really proven himself.
In the AFC, if you take out Bill, because I don't know if they're making the playoffs this year, but like Andy Reid's like the tier one, like top of the pyramid coach, and then probably it's like Vrabel, Tomlin, and John Harbaugh are in that next section there.
Totally. So that's the Titans, and that's the AFC South, and that's the AFC.
Damn.
So
who's making the playoffs in this division?
Yeah, let's do the playoffs. AFC East, it's the Bills.
It's the Bills.
I don't think that the Pats or the Dolphins sneak in.
I don't think so.
And definitely not the stupid Jets.
No.
AFC West, Chiefs and Raiders could.
I think the Chiefs and Raiders, yeah.
Yeah, definitely the Chiefs. The Raiders are a maybe. Steelers, Ravens.
I think so.
Browns are going to slip up and they're going to start losing some games. And then the Titans in the AFC South, and the Colts are 4-2 right now. So
I think really that last spot is probably going to come down to the Colts, Browns, and maybe the Dolphins even fighting for that 7th spot.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
How do you think we did on our predictions?
I think we were okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were generally in the ballpark for most of our predictions.
I think so too.
I think the main things that we got wrong is, injuries kind of ruined some of our shots, especially with the 49ers. I think we were maybe too high on the Saints to start the year, and we were too low on Justin Herbert.
Yep.
But outside of that, I think we were pretty okay. We were maybe a little higher on the Patriots than we should have been, but all in all, not too shabby.
And this is why the Ringer should hire us immediately. Awesome. Well, so that's the mid-season preview. You'll catch us again at the end of the season, or maybe before, maybe
week 12, maybe.
Yeah, week 12.
Who knows? We'll get a 3-quarter mark home stretch.
And so thank you for listening, and we'll see you then. Hey guys, before you head out, this is Future Daniel just chiming in with a few footnotes for this pod. Just like we did in the last one, there were a few things that happened in the last 2 weeks since we recorded that we felt like we should just mention in order to create a more holistic mid-season review show. Starting in the AFC East, the Bills are 6-2, but the Dolphins, they're 4-3. They actually are looking kind of good. Personally, I'm still not expecting them to make the playoffs, but they could definitely slide in there. They're definitely trending upward. Tua's first game as a starter was pretty underwhelming, although he didn't really have to do all that much. He wasn't asked to do all that much. But something I wanted to mention that we forgot to say on the podcast, but Jack texted me yesterday reminding me of this. The Dolphins, as Jack put it, the Dolphins might be a genius organization because they still have the Texans' top 5 overall pick, or at least likely top 5 overall pick. So in a draft with a bunch of really good quarterbacks that are supposed to go in the top 15, they want to start Tua now to make sure that he's the guy. Because if you end up with a top 5 pick and there's a quarterback there that actually you think could be better than Tua, then you want to know for certain. And so that's certainly an interesting perspective. So this might be a really good move for multiple reasons. One, it's either going to help you get into the playoffs, or two, it's going to show you that your guy is actually not the guy. You can move off him early and then take another quarterback with your top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. So good job on the Dolphins for fleecing the Texans and getting that pick. Moving into the AFC West, we were pretty high on the Raiders. We felt like they could go upwards of 12 wins. Right now they're sitting at 4-3. They're a great 4-3 team. I think they've been really competitive in all of their games, and I still do think that they're going to be upwards of 10 wins, and they could still hit 12 wins. But the room for error is definitely getting slimmer now. The Steelers, they are still undefeated, 7-0, and they just played the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson wasn't able to get it done in that game. The Steelers' defense still very strong. Big Ben still playing really good. I think at this point we can lock in that the Steelers and the Chiefs are the top 2 AFC teams. Now, most importantly, the Browns, 5-3. Baker dazzled with a 5-touchdown performance against the Bengals. But I think everyone forgot, they were playing the Bengals. Yeah, so 5 touchdowns against the Bengals, it's not that impressive. But still, it was a really good game, but then he followed that performance up with kind of a dud. And now they're 5-3, and just like we said in the podcast, they are now starting to show us their ass. They are who we thought they were. We're not backing down off of the Browns' take. AFC South, the Titans and Colts are now both 5-2. The Titans are trending down a little bit. I'm not going to back off of my perspective of them being one of the best AFC teams. They're going through some growing pains, but they're still one of the best teams in the AFC, and we still expect them to win the AFC South. The Colts at 5-2, still deceptive. They're still going 9-7. Best case scenario, 10-6. And actually, last thoughts, jumping back up to the AFC East, I do just want to say something very quickly about the Patriots. Cam Newton, I don't know if Cam Newton is still dealing with lingering COVID-related health issues or if there's something wrong with his shoulder still. He's often injured. But I'm going to go ahead and definitively say here in the footnotes that I'm out on Cam Newton. The best days of Cam Newton are now behind us. He's never had a high completion percentage. It's always been something that's concerned me. I thought going into this season that under Belichick and McDaniels, they were going to be able to figure something out. They were going to put him in situations that were better for him, positions that would allow him to complete a higher percentage of passes, more short and intermediate passing. But there are a lot of throws when I watch Cam Newton play that really concern me. At this point, I think you're better off putting him at fullback. That's right. How's that for a hot take to end this podcast? Okay, so those are some footnotes. Just some brief thoughts. We'll see you again at the end of the season when we do a 2020 NFL wrap-up pod. And then after that, we'll do a Super Bowl prediction and probably a Super Bowl follow-up pod. Lots of NFL stuff coming in the future. As always, thank you so much for listening, and have a nice day.